Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the great opportunity to have conversations with just amazing humans. Today, I'm so happy to introduce Wendy to this conversation. Welcome, Wendy.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. So as I will always do, I just do a very brief introduction as to how I know Wendy, and then I'll ask you to do your proper introduction, your professional one, so people know who you are and what you do. So Wendy and I, we've met again, as many of these conversations actually are flowing in through social media, through LinkedIn, through a community of just being sort of all about helping support the conversations around well-being, mental health, and so on. The thing that I've really found fascinating is Wendy is such a positive person. She comes across very positively, and it's infectious, and it's really great, and I love it because I think we need more of our Wendy's in the world to be sharing this sort of content, and the power of positivity is such an important part. So I'm not going to say too much else because I want you to do your introduction, but welcome, introduce yourself, please.
Oh well, thank you very much. You can be my warm-up man again.
Thank you. Well, nobody's ever asked me that.
But that's so amazing. So yes, I'm Wendy Gannaway. I'm director and also chief performance officer of Genius Learning, and I run that with one of my very best friends, Caroline Esterson. And Genius Learning, what we specialize in is helping people really unleash that inner genius, that inner star quality that's inside them. And when they do that, we find that they really do shine. So we can do that through programs for leaders, through programs for teams, and it's really, really lovely. And I guess like over COVID, where we've been majoring on live learning events, and we've got some super clients all over the world, and not that we travel all over the world to do that. Traveling to Europe, when it's the ones that come from the really kind of sexy countries right over there, because I love to travel, they seem to bring them over here. So I'm thinking, can't I go over there?
Yeah.
And so what we've been doing is transferring that and doing that live. So live into virtual. So we're now doing live virtual events and videos. Yes, it's a whole new world, and of course we've had to adapt, and it's quite an exciting world. So that's where we are at the moment.
Brilliant. And I can already feel your positive energy sort of flowing through. So it's great to have you. Thanks for joining this conversation. And it's just nice again to, rather than just being sort of communicating through text and messages, to actually chat. And that's so important, I think.
I know this is actually the first time we've actually spoken to each other.
Yeah. Like bizarre, isn't it? And we've already built a nice connection together. So
it's nice.
So the big question as always, your journey with mental health. Now you define what that looks like. You tell us what you want to tell us. I know you've been thinking about this, but over to you. Tell us a bit about your story.
Okay. Well, first of all, mental health, physical health, we put that in together as health. My journey with that probably started right way back from when I was a kid. And up until recently, it was like health. That's only something that happens to you when you're not healthy. So when you're sick, so when you're physically sick, or if you've got a condition, or if you've had an accident, that's physical health. It's only when you're not healthy. So I'm like the kind of person, if I got sick, even if my head was falling off, I'd blue tack it back on myself rather than go to the doctor. See, I've even got my blue tack there, just falls off right now. Mental health, again, that for me until recently was something that happens to other people. That doesn't happen to me, because that happens if you're not well, and with all like the different conditions there. So I guess I probably wasn't conscious about my own mental health probably until about 2017.
Okay.
And so what happened in 2017 was I just got stuck. So Matt, you said some really kind things about positive energy coming through, and I am a happy person. I'm a really positive person. There you go. There's me jug of water.
Your hydration's
almost full. It's almost full. So I'm like that. And in 2017, there were some events that happened to me. prior to that, a couple of years prior to that, and it was almost like a delay. In 2017, I hit kind of a space in my life that I was just very, very stuck and completely went on a go slow physically and also mentally, like I couldn't think. So let me just take you back to the events that kind of led to that. And partly when Matt asked me to be part of this podcast, my first thing was like oh my God, podcasting, I've never done that before. And am I going to be any good enough to that? So this is going to give you a clue about what's going on. And I've had quite a real hectic couple of weeks delivering. And last night I'm thinking, I better go over Matt's other podcasts and listen to those. And gosh, these lives and what these people have done, I'm not in that league. I can't share that. So I spent late last night, and then my mind's whirring throughout the night. So I haven't really had a lot of sleep. Just drawing it all out, thinking, God, I've got to be good. I've got to be good. Where does this all come from? So I think it comes back. As a child, I was always happy. I was happy and I was a contented baby. My mum always said that, I slept from the word go, slept through the night from the word go. I was no trouble at all. I was happy and I smiled a lot. And from a young age, I was always playing shows. So I was fascinated by the TV and shows and London Night, the London Palladium, giving my age away, and I was watching all of that. And I'd play shows, used to have my own little microphone and do that and dress up in curtains. And I went to acting school when I was very, very young. And it was acting school run by Anna Scher. And we used to go over to my nan's at the weekends. And Anna Scher's drama school used to be in Highbury Fields. So I used to go along there, and Pauline Quirk, Linda Robson, they were in that. I mean, we were all kids. They're a little bit older than me, and some others that went on to be in EastEnders, as I now know now. Yeah. And so I was always, being on stage, really, in that sense. And I don't have brothers and sisters, so until I started school, I didn't really mix with other kids. I come from East London, and probably say, quite a poor part of East London. So I was in adult company until then. And so when I started school, so I'm mixing with other kids, being fiercely independent. Again, my first phrase apparently was I do it myself. So fiercely independent, Wendy, and on stage. So I probably got this learnt to act going on within me, and that started forming part of my DNA. So I was happy through things, started picking up dancing, doing dancing, picking up playing an instrument because it got me out of doing PE. I didn't like PE, so I played the violin and actually went on to study that.
Okay.
It wasn't until secondary school, when I went to secondary school, or big school we call it. So I went to an all-girls school in East London, went to Sarah Bennell School in Stratford. And the first 2 years of that, I've kind of blocked out of my mind, because whether you call it, then you called it being picked on. You didn't really call it bullying. But it was probably the most uncomfortable time learning that I've ever felt, Matt. And everything that could be picked on was picked on. And I can just remember girls crowding around me before lessons. I used to do well at school. I did very well at school. I just wanted to get on and do well and just be nice and be happy. But it was always like, oh, you've got those marks. Oh, you got those. Oh, you haven't got brothers and sisters, so you must be spoiled. You're posh, that kind of thing. So you're hearing me speak now, posh, I don't think so. So what I learned to do was play down my achievements. I used to lie about stuff. So they say, so what marks did you get, Wendy? I bet you got an A. And I go, no, I didn't know. No, I got C. And they found some of my reports, my school reports one time. They said, you said you've got a C, you said you've got a B. We've got this envelope there. And she said, you got those. You lied. You lied. So and it was all about that. So I think, and this is only thanks to you asking me to talk about my mental health journey, I think that this whole, what I now know is imposter syndrome, comes from pushing down my achievements. So how did I get around that? How did I get around all of that? I mean, I used to be scared to go to school. And my mum is just amazing. So I learned so much from my mum. And my mum used to be a Samaritan as well.
Right.
So my mum said, my mum helped me kind of put on an act. She said, well, I can go down to school and I'll complain to the teachers, but I didn't want that because I do it myself. So we worked on how I would act like I wasn't scared, what that would look like. So we worked on that. And we also worked on humour, laughing.
Right.
So what I started to learn to do was make people laugh before they could laugh at me. So humour became part of it. So acting, humour, that all became part of my journey. Now, one thing as a trainer, and also when you're doing stuff like acting, music, dancing, that's a very critical world to be in. So the devil's always in the detail. So it's never a case of like, oh, that was a really great performance. It's always a great performance. And in order to do better, you've got to do this, or that wasn't right. So the devil was in the detail there. So you've got this kind of parallel going on with that. One of the things that we're used to as trainers is feedback. Now, feedback is a bit of a trigger for me because one of the things that happened to me when I was at school, I remember this as clearly as anything, in a geography class, a bit of a placid teacher, the class running riot, and these rough notebooks that everybody had, we were all sitting at these desks. One of these rough notebooks was getting passed around and then it landed on my desk. And somebody had drawn out this whole table and said, feedback for Wendy. Is Wendy ugly, very ugly, extremely ugly? Is Wendy selfish? Yes, very selfish. All of these things. Is Wendy a snob? All of those things. And there was all these ticks. So to this day, when anybody says like, oh, you know, yeah, I would like to discuss some feedback with you, I'm kind of, I've never kind of like worked with that, but I kind of like know there's a trigger there. So that's kind of where that all went to. I went on to Performing Arts College and studied music as a violinist. The next big milestone. So thinking I worked really, really hard. I always worked really, really hard. Never failed anything until my second year at college. Now, I'd learned up till then that never trust my own opinion. I was always validated externally. So when you have like examiners examining you for music exams, for dancing exams, you take notice of that because it's what they say. The one time I actually thought I did well, that was the time I failed. Wow. And another trigger there was, and this is another thing that happened, the day I found out and I went up to see the notice board, one of my tutors at the time said, Wendy, can I just have a word with you for a moment? Or it might have been, can I just have a chat? It was, can I, whatever. Yep. Just wanted to say, yes, with the results on there, you actually failed. And shall we talk about it later? Just come and see me later about it. And it was like, it's out of body experience. That's kind of like a big milestone going on there. So I think what's happened there is it's this fear of failure that I have is probably out there, where I think a lot of people's fear of failure is around here. Mine is like out there, but my coping strategies are act through it and humour. So that kind of carried me on. It carried me on through work, through starting my first business, through joining together with a colleague 4 years ago and forming Genius Learning. then throughout all of this, my stable point, my whole stability was my mum and dad. And my mum had always said, you know, whatever happens, we've always got each other.
Yeah.
And I'm getting choked again, and I don't do this.
Don't worry.
And it wasn't, I think, until 2006 that this thought that they wouldn't be there, you know, came into my head, because I always thought they'll always be there, they will always live forever, what happens, we'll always be together. 2006, my dad got diagnosed with prostate cancer. So prior to then, we were all healthy. Health happens to someone else. So prior to then, we're all healthy. So it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And seeing my mum try and act through this, and seeing my mum cry for the first time in 2006, kind of scared the living daylights out of me. So anyway, so go through that, kind of like, we work with that and learn a lot about prostate cancer and what happens when it happens to men of a certain age later in life. It didn't kill my dad then, but what it did, I think it started killing my mum inside.
Right.
Because my mum pushes things down, like I learned to do, was just like push things down. I probably modelled that from my mum. And what I saw happening for my mum was this, there was something about her that was just different. It was almost like this anxiety coming out. So this very strong lady, she's still a very strong lady, but when you sense something, when you're really in tune with something. And probably in 2015, my mum started getting really ill, and I knew that there was something right. And I said, Mum, you all right? Because my mum, being this, she's quite tall and quite cuddly, just become thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And she was going, no, of course I'm all right. Of course I'm all right. Don't keep going on. Don't keep going on. Of course, right. Of course I'm all right. And this public face. So anyway, shoot through to the end of 2015. What was like, she kept saying, oh, flu, I've just got food poisoning, kept getting these bouts. It was actually sepsis.
Right, wow.
And my mum nearly died. And I, acting, humour, out-of-body experience, I kind of coped. Mum's life was saved, comes back, but then there's all like health scares after that. My dad got diagnosed with bladder cancer, and that was going to be really aggressive. And I think what happened was, forward that to 2017, a lot of that stuff where I'd acted, my coping strategies, my humour, in 2017, I think it just all started to spill out. And my business partner said to me one time, I'm concerned about you. And nobody ever said that to me. I'm concerned about you, because I was always a strong one. I learned to be the strong one. And I was always one that's helping other people, and never reached out, because don't do it all yourself. I do it myself. And she said, I'm concerned about you. And just started playing back to what she was noticing. And when I said to my husband said, she's right. She said, and you're quite angry. I'm not an angry person.
Right.
Yeah. So for the first time in 2017, I did reach out, and it was the first time I actually said, and it's a good job I've got some good friends that are qualified. I just said help, and that was really quite a journey. So I think I learned a lot about what happens when events over the years, if you don't talk about them, they can just stay stuck and suppressed. And now I get them. I absolutely get it. I get what depression is. I get what anxiety is. I get where it's all coming from. I've got some coping mechanisms. I probably wouldn't say I'm there yet, because I think life's a continuous journey. And that this thing about like, it's okay not to be okay. I'm probably still working on that one, because I'm still the strong one. Yeah. So yeah, I think what I've learned is that mental health is something. It's something that's there for all of us. It's part of health. And I think it's a bit like a garden. And if you saw my garden, you'd understand what I mean. that if you try and put turf on a load of weeds and on a load of rubble, it's not going to grow. What you need is to get those weeds out properly, probably get some help with rotivating the lawn so you get some good quality soil. Then you can plant it and it will grow. But keep pulling those weeds out. And the equivalent for me is talking.
Yeah.
And, I learned to talk for the first time in 2017.
I'm glad you did, and it sounds like you know what an incredible story. I thank you so much for sharing that, and I know you put a lot of thought into the way you wanted it to come out, and when you showed your pages, the beautiful thing is when people are listening on the podcast, they have no idea what you did, and when you showed your microphone, nobody noticed that you showed a microphone if they're listening, but they were all visual prompts for everybody. So just in case anybody is listening,
Yeah, I forgot all about it.
There's loads of visual prompts that go on in these podcast recordings that we don't talk about. But thank you for sharing that. I really genuinely do mean that. And what you've done is you've shown your true life. You've shown the reality of what you've been through and the experiences that we've been through, which is exactly what this is about. This is about your journey with mental health. Doesn't necessarily have to be all bad. It can also be good, and those celebratory moments when people recover, or when things change, or when moments of impact are positive. But you have exposed a lot of those things, and I think for me, what I think is beautiful is when you can take the mask off and say, you know what, this is me, this is the real me, this is the stuff that I've carried for years, the burden, the worries, the concerns, the things that I've suppressed for a long time, and then just saying in 2017, that's it, I've got to change that. I think that's fantastic. I really do, and thank you for sharing that. Well,
it's an interesting one, because when I first said, help me, and some very, very good friends did do that trick. Well, it's not a trick, it's listening, and that's what I'm doing. It's just listening and helping me unpick things. So my dad died suddenly in 2019, on 22nd of April 2019, and it was apparently a massive heart attack, and he was just gone just like that. So that was so again, I went into this out-of-body experience. It was all very, I'm the person, I do eulogies at funerals, and and I make people smile, and I managed to do that. My dad's one, but I think the immediate effect after that, when it did kind of dawn on me that he's emigrated to heaven, as I picked that up from one of my friends. On a couple of the days when it did hit me, I found the Samaritans.
Okay.
And I cried down the phone to the Samaritans, and then I thought, I feel all right now, I'm done. And then another couple of days later, I'm thinking, I'm fine, I can go back to work. And then I couldn't go back to work, and I got frustrated with myself. So I thought, I'll go out for a run, that helps. And then, that helped. And then it didn't. And then I'm thinking, come on, I've got to get around this. So I phoned up, I found a cruise, bereavement. And basically I said, this is what's happened. My dad died suddenly so many weeks ago. I've got this coming up, that coming up. I know what you've got to do. Fix me. You've got to have some accelerated grieving program or something like that. So, fix me. They're going, it doesn't work like that.
No.
So so although I knew some things from 2017, I kind of wanted to accelerate that during 2019. And I know it doesn't work like that. And again, I think it's just like letting things process and talk, and just acknowledging where you are and being with it, and letting yourself come out the other side. Talking, isn't it?
Yeah, I love the way you said the trick is about listening, because everybody's got this skill, and we have this wonderful ability. And for anybody that is listening to this podcast, you will be hearing lots of really positive thoughts and things that we can share, or we can talk about. And I remember, just very quickly, sort of on my side, when my auntie passed a couple of years ago, having and I was just about to go on stage and do a keynote presentation for a conference, and it was that sort of, oh my gosh, how do I quickly prepare myself to go on stage and talk? And I was talking about well-being and mental health and things like that, so it was just the perfect conversation. And the first thing I said at the beginning of my set was, I'm going to tell you something at the end, but I'm not going to tell you yet. And I told everybody in the audience what had happened that morning at the end. And the reason I left it to the end was because I was so conscious that I'd already broken down about 3 times before I'd even got on stage, because I was so upset. It was so sudden. Yet I still sort of wanted people to know. And I wasn't doing it for show or for, for anything other than just to recognize that life is, we think we've got it covered. We think we're on track. We think things are going well. And all of a sudden we have a sudden impact, and it throws us totally off kilter, doesn't it?
And it's listening. You're absolutely right. It throws us off kilter. I think what I've learned to do is just acknowledge it. And if I can't, if it's something that I'm struggling with, I've started to tell myself, so what is this teaching me?
Right.
And sometimes I might kind of figure it out like that. If I can't, I'll just let my unconscious mind work it out, and it will work it out. There's so much that I've learned. And when you said about listening, I've called it a trick. You said we've all got this ability to listen. What you don't know is, before Matt and I went on air, and Matt was engaging with me talking, and I was making fun of myself preparing for this, going, and he's going, right, you ready? I'm going, oh, he said, you nervous? And I'm going, no. Thinking, I've been speaking on stage since I was 5 years old, even right till now. I still do. And he listened to what I wasn't saying, and then he said, do you have imposter syndrome? But he said it much more kindly than that. He said it's
very
such
blunt.
A lovely. He didn't say, did you have imposter syndrome?
Yeah,
you have imposter syndrome. He said it in such a really kind way that I did what I just don't do. I just welled up and cried a little bit. And that was this is it. It's listen to what's not being said.
Yeah.
Really tuning in, and that's what he did. And I think if there's anything that can come out of this weird setup that we're all in at the moment, COVID, is become much more aware of what's not being said, how people are the strong ones, the people that have to be, or whether it's in their job title or whether it's in their role in their family, they feel that they've got to be the strong one to support. Just notice what's going on, because they're human as well. And mental health, it's all part of the same thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think it was an interesting moment. And you know what? Sometimes I say things and I get it wrong. And that's not to say I'm perfect at reading everybody in the way that they're reacting and the way that they're talking or not talking. And we all make mistakes in some of those assessments. And what I want to be really clear is that, you could have, again, you could have acted and said, oh, no, I'm fine. It's absolutely fine. But what you did was the best thing, which was you reacted and said, yes, you know what, I do. And that was that was all we needed to really do, wasn't it? It was just so then you can understand. And this is one of the biggest challenges with mental health, is we think we know what the person's thinking, and that's just not good enough, because how can we don't have this ability to be telepathic. So, well, some people think they do, but we don't know, do we? We make massive assumptions. We think we see what we see, we think we hear as being the reality of people. Smiling means happy, sad means, upset. Frowning or crying means upset. That's what I meant, sorry. And it's so important. I could continue talking to you all day long, Wendy. Unfortunately, we are coming towards the end of this session as well. So like, oh my God, it's not a therapy session. I say that like it's like, and next week on this wonderful event. But this is real. And I genuinely just want to say a huge thank you for you being honest and genuine and authentic and all those wonderful things that I keep promoting to people, to say that don't feel that you can't talk about this stuff. It's got to be spoken. When we don't speak it, we carry it, and that's dangerous. So I'm going to pass you the floor for the last words, thoughts. Shamelessly plug your business if you want. I know you've got a book as well, so shamelessly plug that if that's something that you want to. You've got another book coming. There's a million things we could have talked about, and we talked about your story for the whole thing, which I love, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Throw it over to you.
So, yes, during lockdown, my business partner and I decided to take the courageous decision to furlough ourselves. We're in a fortunate position that we were able to do that, and that gave us the gift of time and space to really think about what we wanted to do, and just kind of be with it, because we could have done what, you know, I've normally done when traumas happens, just like throw myself into stuff. We could have thrown ourselves into it. Well, no, just like be for a moment. So we decided that we would do what we wanted to do for a long time, and that's write a book. So we collaborated first of all with about 50 other authors, and a friend of mine curated that, and that book, Ready to Rise, came out in May, and that's all proceeds from that go to World Health Organization and NHS charities together. Then Caroline, who's my business partner, my work wife as I call her, and I decided that we would write our own book. And before we did that, we suddenly thought, oh, we've got this that we could get printed. So we've got Your Genius Ideas book, a dose of commercial creativity for busy L&D, that's learning and development professionals. Actually, loads of professionals can benefit from it, because anybody can be learning. So that is out on Amazon, and that's a lovely treasure trove. And coming out in March. The end of March, March this year. I'm going to say 2021, but we're in 2021.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
We'll be unlocking everyday genius. So that's some original material about how everyday genius shows up, because we've all got this inner star quality, and if you unlock it and you shine it, it can show up in all different ways. So that's where we are. And outside of that, we run some lovely programs to help people make the best of themselves and to really shine through. So I'm happy to help anybody who wants to be helped.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for sharing that. And I'll drop some links to you in the media that comes out with this as well. So brilliant stuff. Thank you so much, Wendy, for your time this morning, going into this afternoon now. As I always do to close, I just want to say, if anybody is struggling, if you resonate with any of the story that Wendy's told, if you have some worries or concerns yourself, if you are worried about others, know that there is always somebody that you can talk to. I think that's such an important part of this. This is about talking about mental health and the journey. I hope part of it is something that you might recognize or need some help or support with. If you do, you can call or contact Samaritans 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The number's 116 123. Please know there is always somebody there who will listen and who will, just be there so you can offload your worries and your concerns. So we're done. Thank you so much, Wendy, for your time today. I do appreciate it. It's been lovely to talk with you and chat with you and all those wonderful things. So you stay safe and look after yourself.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.